in deficit because of your success? I don't know. It's just something that I was thinking about. The other thing that I was thinking about is the fact that your last day will probably be like just any other day. Now, I wrote down quite a lot of notes for this because this statement really got me thinking. Let me share with you some of the things that I wrote down. So I wrote down that your last day will probably be just like any other day. Life is about the details, and the details are what make life. The key to a spectacular, well-lived life is to know what details matter. I wrote down that much of making a good life is about seeing the world as others see it and knowing their truth and seeing them. I wrote down that when you begin to pay attention, you automatically start asking why. You desire to understand people and you desire to understand people's circumstances. So let me talk a little bit about this because this is an interesting topic. So I was thinking about this topic in relation to really about life and the way in which I lived my life and the way that I've been living my life. Because as I mentioned earlier on, there is a propensity and an assumption for many of us to believe that when we achieve something outwardly, that it is going to fulfill us inwardly. And I have basically found that like 9 times out of 10 doesn't work. We may get instant kind of relief, but in order to have fulfillment, that is a very different thing that we have to go after. And I was thinking that really, as I said earlier on, much of life is about living in the space of what we don't have. It's about much of life is spent in that bridge between where we are and where we actually want to get to. And how we manage that journey and that time between where we are and where we want to get to is really what makes up most of life. And when we begin to understand this, one of the things that you begin to understand is that really what is you're going to be remembered for, and the kind of life that you're going to live is going to be based on the kind of interactions that you can have with other people. And I think when you begin to understand, okay, so what's really going to make up my life is the way in which I'm going to interact with other people, the experiences that I'm going to have with them, the connections that I'm going to have with them, the conversations that I'm going to have with them. I need to figure out a couple of things about people. What do people want? What do people desire? And when you begin to ask some of these questions and you begin to pay attention to other people, you begin to notice that actually you don't know a lot about people as much as what you think you do, right? Because a lot of people observe people do stuff and they think that that person is crazy. They think that that person is mental. They think that that person is fucked up. But the only reason why they believe that is because they don't understand why the person is behaving this way. They don't understand why the person is being like this. And I think part of life, and this is part of life, is really recognizing other people's truth and recognizing context, recognizing what people have experienced and what has led up to where they are today. For this reason, I share with people that one of the highest acts of manhood is to recognize somebody's existence. Recognizing somebody's existence, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the highest acts of humanity, right? To see somebody for who they are, to recognize them and say, I see you, I get you, I understand you, I feel you. No, you're not crazy. I felt like how you feel. And in order to do that, you have to, number two, you have to crack open your heart so that you share something with the person so that in turn, they will give you the context. They will give you their why. And when you begin to share that why, and they begin to share that why, and they begin to share their context, all of a sudden you begin to understand people. You begin to get why people are the way that they are. Let me take this a bit further. Have you ever had somebody in your life where they were constantly angry, constantly pissed off, constantly just dejecting everybody, constantly just like abrasive, really just like obtuse, right, towards everybody? And they'd been like that for like years and years and years. And for years you just said, that's the way they are. And in one day, you found out that their parents have been going through a divorce, that their mum had been going through an abusive relationship, that they were abandoned as children, but you didn't know about any of this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, when you get that information, alarm bells and connections start going off. Oh, so that's why she doesn't really like men, or that's why she doesn't really like being touched, or that's why she's really cold every single time somebody becomes emotional, or that's why she doesn't believe in marriage. Do you see what I'm saying? All of these connections start going off. And what I would share with you is that I believe that one of the really, really important things about life is to understand that the interactions of every single day is what really is going to make up your life. And when you eventually manage to pass away and you eventually manage to go to heaven, whatever it is that you believe, the reality of life is it's probably going to be like any other day, right? Because look, none of us really know when we're going to go, right? We all know for definite, as far as we can see from the last 4,000 years of recorded history, we ain't gonna outlast this, right? Maybe in the future they're gonna figure out a way to prolong human life for a long time. But at the moment, as far as we know, all of us around between ages 80 and about 110, all of us, at one way or another, we're gonna die, right? We don't know when. It could be even earlier than that, right? Some of us could have another 5 years. Some of us could have another 10 years because we might get run over, because we might be in a car crash, because we might have suffer a heart attack. We don't know. Obviously, I don't want to depress you, but the reality of life is that is how it is. We don't know how long we're going to live. But the day that we actually die is probably going to be just like any other day. If we look at the week leading up to our death, it probably is just a normal day. And so what I would encourage you to think about is try to leave, when you're planning your week and you're thinking about the things that you want to do and the way you want to live your life and how you want to present yourself this week, start thinking about, if this was my last week, how would I want to show up? What are they gonna write in the newspapers about how my week was leading up to my death? What are people gonna say at your eulogy, actually? That's an interesting question. What are people gonna say about you? Oh, I saw him last week and we went for a meal. It was one of the most amazing meals. See, most people, let me take this further. I'm taking too much time, but I want to really drag this out. Some of you guys don't understand that when on the week of your dying, there are going to be people who are going to say at your funeral that they were the last person you saw. The meal that they had with you was the last meal that they had with you. And that is going to leave an impression on them. This is how see, most people think that they're so insignificant. Most people think that they're so they don't matter and their life is so insignificant. But the truth of the matter is, whether you realize it or not, every day you're affecting somebody's life. People are using you as a comparison. I want to be like you. I don't want to be like you. People are looking at you as inspiration and saying, well, look, they overcame that. Well, look, they managed to do that in spite of all of this. Right? Every day people are looking at you, whether you like it or not, and they're using you in some way. And my question to you is, do you realize that, number one? And number two, how are you showing up? I don't know.